here for the 3 o'clock. I'm still working on the study that I've been working on now for a couple of years now, and will probably take at least another year or two at the rate that I get to speak. I get to speak about 16 times a year working on this. So not like the old days when I could knock something out like this in less than a year. But, I was sitting here before services or during the Bible study, and my body is still giving me a lot of problems. For those that are not aware of it, I had my scan after I completed my chemo for Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the scan came up clear, meaning I no longer have any problems within my lymph gland system. But I will go back in January to do a follow-up, and probably every 3 to 6 months thereafter do a follow-up just to make sure that it doesn't reinsert itself. Plus, there was one other aspect in this one. There was one place on my number 5 lumbar. It also cleared up. So, that could have gone in, because they did a bone marrow test when I was in the hospital. You get old, and then your body starts breaking down. And it was like during the break, asking prayers for those that are having physical problems as a result. One person is recovering from back surgery, and I've been through that, so I know what that can be like. Another person is having a problem with their hip. And then the other person was, she'd had blood vessels in her eye rupture, which has caused blindness. Right. So, those are things that you can think of. You don't have to know their names. You just know that they're brethren and that they've asked for prayers on their behalf, and that Yahweh can intervene and clear up all of the problems that they're having. I've recovered from this lymphoma. I'm recovering from the fact that the bottom part of my heart was blocked. When we're talking about block, we ain't talking about percentage, we're talking about 100%. So that they had to go in and put in 6 stents in the bottom of my heart. I've had a echocardiogram since then, but I have not received the results of that echocardiogram. Next month, I go in to see my heart doctor, so I'm hoping by then he'll have the results. I don't know why it's taking so long. Normally, it takes less than a week in most cases to get that kind of results. So it kind of has me concerned there. But what I really was getting into is I'm still experiencing problems with weakness. I can go out to do yard work, or in my case, I'm working on a piece of property that I bought outside of Paris let's see, I finally got a hold of a bush hog, or they call her shredder up there, to mow the back 5 acres of the 8. And it took me 5 days to mow that. And because I can only go out there and do it for about 2 to 3 hours before my body says, no, you better stop and rest a while and let everything catch you back up. I will say, though, my blood sugar, if I wear a monitor now that I change out every 14 days, and it tells me exactly. It's getting better than it originally was. Originally, it was showing I was having low blood sugar when I was actually having high blood sugar. When I tested it with the test strips, there was about a 90-point difference between it, and that's a whole lot of difference. Now it's down to where it's only about 10 to 20 points difference in them, and so but overall, the problem I run into is the thing waking me up at night. It's a small unit that I use. Now, where did I put it? Anyway, it's a small unit that I use that tells me what my blood sugar is. Well, it should be. Guess what? I've misplaced it again. No, wait a minute. I think I found it here. Yeah. For those that are out there on the video, they can see it's not a very big unit. I can do this, and it does Bluetooth and tells me my blood sugar currently is 105. Okay, it should be between about 90 and 120. 2 hours after you eat. Okay, but at night it's been running like 65. Well, when it goes below 70, I get an alarm warning me of low blood sugar. But unlike the average person, if they have low blood sugar, they tend to want to pass out or go into coma. I don't even feel anything different. I had bought some glucose tablets, and I tried that a couple of times and didn't notice any change. So anyway, just let you know that my blood sugar is showing a lot better than it's ever been. So overall, the body's in better shape, but still, I don't understand the reason why I have these spells of weakness. So keep that in mind. I need your prayers as much as anything, especially when making that 2-hour drive from Paris down to here and then go 2 hours back. I don't complain. That's not the thing. But I'm feeling better right now sitting here than I did when I was sitting during the Bible study. So hopefully we'll get through this. Going on with the study in Ezekiel, I'm going to read the chapter first. Then I'm going to come back and pick up where I left off the last time I was here, because I didn't get that far through it last time. So hopefully we'll get through that and maybe get a little bit of chapter 33. We're getting closer to the parts that I really am looking forward to really discussing, because it gets into a little more of the prophecies. In chapter 32, it's Egypt's fall. See, one of the things that we've been discussing is the fact here, first, Yahweh sent Israel into captivity, the southern house of Israel into captivity. Now, we've been going through in the last few chapters, Yahweh, after he sent them into captivity, now he's turning around and doing the same thing to all of the nations around them, because they did not support Israel. And in most cases, they were the ones that were actually leading Israel astray with idolatrous worship. And basically their idea was they were trying to make Yahweh punish Israel by getting Israel to turn their back on Yahweh. So Yahweh is saying, okay, you've done all of this, so now it's your turn. So in chapter 32, it said, it came to pass in the 12th year, in the 12th month, on the first day of the month, that the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say unto him, You are like a young lion of the nations, and you are as a whale in the seas, and you came forth with your rivers, and troubles the waters with your feet, and foulest their rivers, or foul their rivers. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, I will therefore spread out my net over you with a company of many people, and they shall bring you up in my net. Then will I leave you upon the land. I will cast you forth upon the open field, and will cause all the fowls of the heaven to remain upon you, and I will fill the beasts of the whole earth with you. You know, that's basically your carcasses. And I will lay the flesh upon the mountains. I'll lay your flesh upon the mountains and fill the valleys with your height. I will also water with your blood the land wherein you swimmest, even to the mountains, and the rivers shall be full of you. And when I shall put you out, I will cover the heaven and make the stars thereof dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. All the bright lights of heaven will I make dark over you, and set darkness upon your land, says Adonai Yahweh. I will also vex the hearts of many people, when I shall bring thy destruction among the nations into the countries which you have not known. Yes, I will make many people amazed at you, and their kings shall be horribly afraid for you. When I shall brandish my sword before them, and they shall tremble at every moment, every man for his own life in the day of your fall. For thus says Adonai Yahweh, the sword of the king of Babylon shall come upon you. By the swords of the mighty will I cause your multitude to fall, the terrible of the nations, all of them. And they shall spoil the pomp of Egypt, and all the multitude thereof shall be destroyed. I will destroy also all the beasts thereof from beside the great waters. Neither shall the foot of man trouble them any more, nor the hoofs of beasts trouble them. Then will I make their waters deep, and cause their rivers to run like oil, says Adonai Yahweh. When I shall make the land of Egypt desolate, and the country shall be destitute of that whereof it was full, when I shall smite all of them that dwell therein, then shall they know that I am Yahweh. This is the lamentation wherewith they shall lament her. The daughters of the nations shall lament her. They shall lament for her, even for Egypt, and for all her multitude, says Adonai Yahweh. It came to pass also in the 12th year, on the 15th day of the month, that the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, wail for the multitude of Egypt, and cast them down, even her, and the daughters of the famous nations, unto the nether parts of the earth, with them that go down into the pit. Whom do you pass in beauty? Go down, and be you laid with the uncircumcised. They shall fall in the midst of them that are slain by the sword. She is delivered to the sword that draw her and all her multitudes. The strong among the mighty shall speak to him out of the midst of Hades with them that helped him. They are gone down. They lie uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Asher is there and all her company. His graves are about him, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, whose graves are set in the sides of the pit, and her company is round about her grave. All of them slain, fallen by the sword, which caused terror in the land of the living. There is Elam and all her multitude round about her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, because he'd already done this to Elam, which are gone down uncircumcised into the nether parts of the earth, which caused their terror in the land of the living, yet have they borne their shame with them that go down to the pit. They have set her a bed in the midst of the slain with all her multitude. Her graves are round about him, all of them uncircumcised, slain by the sword, though their terror was caused in the land of the living, yet have they borne their shame with them that go down to the pit. He is put in the midst of them that be slain. There is Meshach, Tubal, and all her multitude. Her graves are round about him, all of them uncircumcised, slain by the sword, though they caused their terror in the land of the living. And they shall not lie with the mighty that are fallen of the uncircumcised, which are gone down to Hades with their weapons of war. And they have laid their swords under their heads, but their iniquities shall be upon their bones, though they were the terror of the mighty in the land of the living. Yes, though thou shalt be broken in the midst of the uncircumcised, and shalt lie with them that are slain with the sword. There is Edom, another one of them that's already been taken care of, her kings and all her princes, which with their might are laid by them that were slain by the sword. They shall lie with the uncircumcised, and with them that go down to the pit. There be the princes of the north, all of them, and all the Zidonians, which are gone down with the slain. With their terror they are ashamed of their might, and they lie uncircumcised with them that be slain by the sword, and bear their shame with them that go down to the pit. Pharaoh shall see them, and shall be comforted over all his multitude. even Pharaoh and all his army slain by the sword, says Adonai Yahweh. For I have caused my terror in the land of the living, and he shall be laid in the midst of the uncircumcised with them that are slain with the sword, even Pharaoh and all his multitude, says Adonai Yahweh. What this is leading up to is the fact that during the same time, let me go back a bit. First of all, we're only talking about descendants of Noah, because that's all that lived in the world at that time. We're the direct descendants of Noah. They all know who Yahweh is. They've turned their backs on Yahweh, but they want to make sure that Israel turns their back on Yahweh so that Yahweh will punish them and destroy them. It's like what you have in modern day is the difference between Israelites and Muslims. The Muslims believe that that Ishmael is the true firstborn of Abraham, and that they are the ones that inhabit everything, and that the descendants of Jacob are all usurpers. I guess is the only way. Yeah, usurpers. Okay, and that as such do not deserve to be alive, to inherit everything that they've inherited, all of the wealth that they have. And you see the same thing that's happening right now in the Middle East. It's the modern day secular, and I'm not going to call it the Israel of Yahweh. This is the modern day secular Israel, because most of the ones in the land do not worship Yahweh. Most of them won't even pronounce his name, much less anything else. But they're dealing with the Muslims around them, whose total intent is to destroy them, just like was going on right here. And it led to Yahweh sending Israel into captivity, the southern tribes, the house of Israel, into captivity. But also, this was all done by Nebuchadnezzar. That's who Yahweh brought in to do all of this. He raised him from a child. He was trained for this purpose, because Yahweh knew that there was going to be a time. It's just like Israel's, the descendants of Jacob stayed in Egypt until the Canaanites had reached their apex of their idol worship. Then he brought Israel into the land to wipe them out and to replace them. And he told them, you replace them. If you don't replace them, they will be a thorn in your side forever. And as I guess history has shown, they've been a thorn in Israel's side forever and will continue to be. Anyway, so we're coming up to this modern time, this even to the point of the Palestinian-Israeli battle. And I'll make my personal observation, it ain't going to go well. Because eventually they're going to do something that's going to be within the range of what the world considers to be morally impure. And then the world will turn on Israel or any Israeli. Yeah. It's like what we have on that front window up there, the Hebrew letters, the name, the congregation of YHWH. Don't be surprised if there's a backlash. And it becomes even more so, because, I mean, it's become more prevalent now due to the fact that there are these groups of secular Jews, and that's what you have to look at. They're secular Jews who are siding with the Palestinians, okay, thinking that if they can do something for the Palestinians, then the Palestinians will do something for them. As you can see, when they broke into those kibbutzes, did they spare anybody that they had a chance to kill? No. Other than the ones they took hostage. But the rest of them, they did everything in their power to kill as many as they possibly could. I mean, it's just something, even here, they were trying to destroy Israel, what was then Yahweh's Israel. Yes, he punished Israel because they should have known better. And he's going to punish the modern Israel because they should have known better. They should have known what they needed to do in the first place. And yes, Curtis.
Start with today's Palestinians. What we call the Palestinians are in fact the Philistines. They haven't changed their.
But who is their grandfather? They're cousins. No matter what you look at, they're cousins.
I mean, but it's an age-old feud.
There's a third cousin removed or whatever. It still comes back down to the same thing. It's a battle among family.
It's a family feud.
Yes. And so what we're looking at here, even when we're talking about Pharaoh, the Egyptians were descendants of Noah. Okay, and then as it talked about here, Tubal and Meshach, and I think Tubal is what is now modern day Turkey. Meshach, same way. Maybe even some of the ones that are up in Ukraine.
Russian steppes.
Kazakhstan. Let's see, what's the other Muslim country that's in there in the Kazakhstan? Kazakhstan. Those areas there.
Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, the lemonade stand.
Well, let's put it this way. My Ancestry.com test came back showing that I was 1% Kazakhstan. Nothing Jewish. Nothing Israelite. Other than what may have been up in the fact of it. The majority was northwestern Europe, which would be France, Scandinavia, and the largest percentage is actually I'm Irish. If you have any problem with that, I'm sorry, but I didn't have a choice in the matter. But you look at the world today, and you look at all these things. They go back to some of the things we're talking about here. Some of the judgments that Yahweh had to bring about, and now He's taking it out on Pharaoh. Because see, one of the things that happened here was that Nebuchadnezzar, after he took all of the royal house of Israel and all of the Levitical priesthood, the ones I'm saying that were that actually could serve at the altar at the temple, took them into captivity. He placed a new governor over them called Gedaliah, and a group spared on by one of these nations here that we're talking about the Israelites left to murdering Gedaliah. Well, now they're afraid that Nebuchadnezzar is going to come down on them real hard since they've murdered the governor. And Jeremiah, over in Jeremiah, he tells them, don't worry about it. Because see, Ezekiel is in captivity. Jeremiah is still in the land. Okay, so he tells them that he's, don't worry about it. Remain here. Yahweh will protect you. If you go down to Egypt, you're going to forget my name. So where does this idea of not saying the name is too holy originate? Egypt, Alexandria, with the Israelite population that did go. It's like here. And now the situation is, since they went to Egypt, now Nebuchadnezzar is going to send his troops after them. He's not going to let them get away. He's going to go out, and at the same time, he's going to take on Egypt. Because up until this time, Egypt was one of the most powerful nations other than Nebuchadnezzar and his armies. They were the largest army on the face and one of the richest countries in the world. What do you see today? You see one of the poorest nations in the world. Because basically, Yahweh is going to destroy them through killing off Pharaoh and killing off the houses, the royal family, and basically they never come back to power again after this. Tom, you had something?
You see the condition with the moderate opening of relief to the Palestinians by Egypt, that purportedly the IDF is helping to sustain that, to show some, purportedly again, mercy for the non-Hamas group in Gaza. But to go clear back, I know years ago I would meet with people at the College Inn in Denton who were doing accelerated courses that were for the various Islamic parts of the world. And to a person, they would say to me that the account that we're reading in Genesis 16 should be redacted, and it should be shown that it was Ishmael that's the favored one. But according to Genesis 16, the idea that Sarah had to help out poor Abraham, who was wanting a son of consolation, she comes up with her handmaid, as you know, we read in Genesis 16, but it says of the progenitor of modern Islam, as they, both Sunni and Shia, both acknowledge, is Ishmael. And here in our account, we believe it's inspired and protected by Yahweh. It says that he would be a wild man, verse 12.
Uh-huh.
His hand will be against most people, no, against every man, including with his own tribesmen, Sunni or Shia, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren.
What scripture is that?
That's in Genesis 16 and verse 12.
Genesis 16, verse 12. Well, it's talking about that wild man. The one thing that I think we have a book over here in our library that it's written as a fiction.
It's onager in the Hebrew. It means a wild jackass of a man. Literally.
It's written as fiction, but it's actually based on what this scripture is talking about. The fact of within the Muslim community, within the family, the sons fight each other, and when they're not fighting each other, they fight their father. They're just liable to kill their father in the battle, and then the only time that they fight anybody outside of the family is when they come together as a group, as a tribe, to fight another tribe. But it's always a battle. It's always like I said, a wild man. It's never trying to live in peace with your neighbors or trying to do better or to improve yourself or to improve them. It's always a battle over who's going to be number one. And you look at the even within, it's like in Saudi Arabia, their arguments and their fights right now over who will replace the king, who's the next in line. Right. And it changes year to year as to who has the most power to do that. Okay, where we're going to pick up, where I left off the last time was verse 20, huh?
Oh, sorry.
What'd you go?
Chapter 33?
No, I hadn't gotten to chapter 33. I left off at verse 24 of chapter 32. It said, no, I'm sorry, you're right. What am I looking? No, I'm looking at the wrong chapter. I got the correct chapter over here. I knew there was something didn't look right. Verse 22, it says, Asher is there and all her company. His graves are about him, all of them slain, fallen by the sword. This is Ezekiel 32:22. The commentary is, sorry about this. I should have sat down here and redivided this. Here we go. Verse 22 says, Asher is there and all her company. The commentary is, in the state of the dead, or in a most desolate and ruinous condition. The Assyrian monarchy, the kings of it, the princes, nobles, generals, soldiers, and the vast number of subjects in all the dominions of it, all his army as a Targum. This, with what follows, shows who the mighty are, that they should meet and address the king of Egypt at his funeral. His graves are about him, either the graves of Pharaoh and his multitude, or round about the graves of the Assyrian monarch and his subjects, as one writer puts, or rather the graves of his subjects and soldiers are round about him. It seems to represent the king of Assyria as having a more stately monument, and the graves of his people as lesser ones round about him, but all in the same condition. All of them slain, fallen by the sword of their enemies, the Medes and the Babylonians, by whom the Assyrian monarchy was destroyed. Verse 23 goes on, whose graves are set in the uttermost parts of the pit, and her company is round her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, who caused terror in the land of the living. Commentary is, whose graves are set in the sides of the pit, or vault, where lay the king of Assyria, and those who fell by the sword with him, who are represented as lying in graves all around him, the nearest to him those who were in the highest post, and most valiant and courageous, and the next the common soldiers as follows. And her company is round about her grave, not Pharaoh's company round about the grave of the Assyrian monarch, but the company of the king of Assyria and his army as the Targum, or the Jewish commentary, round about grave, or lying about in the ruins of his kingdom. All of them slain, fallen by the sword, which caused terror in the land of the living. Even they who now are in the state of the dead, and can no more disturb and distress any, while they were alive or in the world, struck terror in all the neighboring states and kingdoms, threatening destruction to them, and obliging them to submit to their tyranny and exactions. Jarsi, in his, interprets this of the land of Israel, and the Jewish writers commonly understand by the land of the living, the land of Canaan, wherever they meet with it, because here men worship the living God and live before him, and the inhabitants of this land were often terrified by the king of Assyria. So the Targum reads, because they ruled in the land of Israel. Verse 24, there is Elam and all her multitude round her grave. Commentary is, there is Elam and all her multitude around about her grave, the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians lying in ruin, and the potent kings thereof in the state of the dead, with their army, as the Arabic version, slain and destroyed, and placed round about the grave of the king of Persia. For of him rather it is to be understood than the king of Assyria or of Egypt, as some. All of them slain, fallen by the sword, either of the Scythians in the reign of Cyrartes, or of Nebuchadnezzar a few years before this in the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, as you would find in Jeremiah 49, verse 34. In Jeremiah 49:34, Yahweh's word that came to Jeremiah the prophet concerning Elam in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, saying, Yahweh of armies, or Yahweh Sabaoth, behold, I will break the bow of Elam, the chief of their might. I will bring on Elam the four winds from the four quarters of the sky, and will scatter them toward all those winds. There will be no nation where the outcast of Elam will not come. I will cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies, and before those who seek their life. I will bring evil on them, evil, even my fierce anger, says Yahweh, and I will send the sword after them until I have consumed them. I will set my throne in Elam, and will destroy from there king and princess, says Yahweh. But it will happen in the latter days that I will reverse the captivity of Elam, says Yahweh. It goes on in the commentary on verse 24, which are gone down uncircumcised into the nether parts of the earth, unholy persons, profane sinners, destitute of the grace of Yahweh, who were gone down into the grave and even into Hades and everlasting destruction, as their sins deserved, which caused their terror in the land of the living, made a great noise in the world, and struck a panic in neighboring nations, invaded and conquered by them. This they did while living, but now, being in the state of the dead, nothing was to be feared from them. Yet have they borne their shame with them that go down to the pit, where were obliged to submit to death, and a shameful one, by the hands of their conquerors, and to be laid with the ignominy in the graves with others, without any mark or distinction, all being upon a level, cast into the same pit of destruction, and into the lower parts of it, though their king might have a magnificent sepulchre erected for him, as follows. Verse 25 begins, they have set her bed in the midst of the slain with all her multitude. The grave is called a bed. That's in Isaiah 57, verse 2. Isaiah 57, chapter 57, verse 1. The righteous perish and no one lays it to heart. Merciful men are taken away and no one considers that the righteous is taken away from the evil. He enters into peace. They rest in their beds, each one who walks in his uprightness. But draw near them, but draw here, you sons of sorcerers, you offspring of adulterers and prostitutes. Whom do you mock? Against whom do you make a wide mouth and stick out your tongue? In other words, aren't you children of disobedience and offspring of falsehood? You who inflamed yourselves among the oaks, under every green tree, who killed the children in the valleys, under the clefts of the rocks. Among the smooth stones of the valley is your portion. They are your lot. You have even poured a drink offering to them. You have offered an offering. Shall I be appeased for these things? On a high and lofty mountain you have set your bed. You also went up there to offer sacrifice. You have set up your memorial behind the doors and the posts, for you have exposed yourself to someone besides me and have gone up. You have enlarged your bed and made you a covenant with them. You loved what you saw on their bed. You went to the king with oil and increased your perfumes and sent your ambassadors afar off and degraded yourselves even to Sheol. You were wearied with the length of your ways, yet you didn't say it is vain. You found a reviving of your strength, therefore you weren't faint. Whom have you dreaded and feared, so that you lie and have not remembered me, not remembered Yahweh, nor laid it to your heart? Haven't I held my peace for a long time, and you don't fear me? I will declare your righteousness, as for your works, they will not benefit you. When you cry, let those whom you have gathered deliver you, but the wind will take them, a breath will carry them away. But he who takes refuge in me will possess the land and will inherit my holy mountain. You know, he's telling them, you know, you put all this, I keep wanting to say support. You put all your eggs in one basket over here. That basket is not for Yahweh. That basket is for all of these idols and all of these people around you. All these ones that you've made, all of these allegiances to. Because, see, they were expecting, when Nebuchadnezzar invaded Israel, they were expecting the Egyptians to send their army to defend them. And it didn't happen. So, you know, it's in the days that it becomes really important that they have these friends, so-called. You know, they're not exactly friends you can depend on. They didn't. It says, going on here, for verse 25, says, her graves are round about him, the king of Persia and his graves, surrounded with the graves of his soldiers and officers, all of them uncircumcised, and slain by the sword, though their terror was caused in the land. Meaning, look at all the people they killed, the terror they brought with them as they invaded and subjugated the entire land. Yet have they borne their shame with them that go down to the pit, which is repeated for the confirmation of it. He is put in the midst of them that be slain. The king of Elam or Persia, he is laid among the slain, having fallen with them, and his grave is placed in the midst of them. Verse 26, there is Meshach, Tubal, and their multitude, and all heard. The Scythians, a powerful and warlike people, and all their armies, as the Targum, with their leaders, generals, commanders, is lying in their graves next to the Assyrians and the Elamites. Great warriors. But what is the end of all great warriors? I mean, you die. And after a time, nobody remembers you. They can't separate you from everybody else. They may erect a monument to the whole group, but after a while, even that goes away. Most of what you would have called millennials or Generation Z couldn't even tell you half of what's today meant. What people went through back in World War I, because this is originally from World War I. The hundreds and the millions that died as a result of that war. A war that didn't even have to take place. But also turned around and led into World War II, which was even more millions and hundreds of millions that died needlessly because someone thought they had been disked, as we would say today. And he wanted to show the world that we are bigger and better than you are. And where are they today? They're just like with the ones here. They're in their graves, along with everybody else that died during that time period, including the ones they murdered. He says, her graves are round about him, not the king of Egypt, nor the king of Assyria, nor the king of Persia, but the chief commanders of the Scythians, called the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. That's in his, jumps forward to Ezekiel 38:2. All of them slain by the sword. The Haliats, the king of Lydia, and Syraxes, the king of Media, who was assisted by the former in subduing the Scythians, though they caused their terror in the land of the living as they did in Media and other countries, and especially in some parts of Asia. Verse 27, they will not lie with the mighty that are fallen of the uncircumcised, that is, shall not lie in state, or be buried with such pomp and magnificence, and have such sepulchral monuments erected to their memory as their other heroes among the heathens have, such as the mighty kings of Assyria and Persia before mentioned, which have gone down to the grave, with their weapons of war, which were never taken from them, and which they held in their hands to the last, being never conquered, and died at last a natural death, and not by the sword, or which they were carried in state before their hearse at the time of the interment, as is the custom to this day to so do at the funeral of great warriors and generals. And they have laid their swords under their heads as a sign and token, as Jarcy, one of the commentators, says, that the sword will not rule over them, that they did not fall by it, neither their statues and sepulchral monuments were adorned with these and other instruments of war. In other words, they died a natural death. They lived out their lifetime compared to all the people that they murdered before that. As was the grave of Messenius, of Anathius, and as I'm still bumbling on these pronunciation, as is the still custom where the heads of such mighty ones are laid, to engrave them on them, or literally their swords and other weapons of war were put in their graves under their heads, as is usual in former times in some places, to put swords, shields, and other armor in the graves of military men, as were in the grave of Theseus on the bier of Alexander the Great, and others, as reported by Plutarch. It says, but their iniquity shall be upon their bones, or the punishment of their sin should be that their bones should lie unburied, scattered about, or be dug up and broken into pieces and treated with inhumanity and contempt as a just reward for their savageness and cruelty. Though they were a terror in the mighty in the land of the living, not only the terror of common people, but even the most powerful kings and mighty warriors. Verse 28, yea, you shall be broken in the midst of the uncircumcised. The commentaries thinks this is said to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, but rather it respects the prince of the Scythians, who should fall into the hands of the heathens and be destroyed by them. and shall lie with them that are slain with the sword, be buried with them, or in a like manner as they are, not as mighty warriors who died a natural death in their own country, and are buried in a stately and magnificent manner, but like those that fall by the sword of the enemy and are thrown into one common pit. Verse 29 says, there is Edom, her kings and all her princes. In this next place, near the graves of the above mentioned, so make sure I get this right, in the same ruinous and desolate condition lie the famous kingdom of Idumea. That's Edom. Later was changed its name to Idumea, Idumea, and several kings and dukes of it, from the first setting of it up to its last destruction, prophesied in Ezekiel 25:12, and of which is mentioned in Genesis 36:15 in the genealogy. In Ezekiel 25:12, thus says Adonai Yahweh, because Edom has dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and has greatly offended and taken revenge on them. Remember, in the first place, was when they were coming out of Egypt, Edom wouldn't let them cross their land, blocked them. Okay? Here's their cousins coming in. They don't want to have nothing to do with them. Verse 13 of Ezekiel 25, therefore, thus says Adonai Yahweh, I will stretch out my hand on Edom, and I will cut off man and animal from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman. They will fall by the sword even to Dedan. That's the borders of the area of Edom. I will lay my vengeance on Edom by the hand of my people Israel. They will do in Edom according to my anger and according to my wrath. Then they will know my vengeance, says Adonai Yahweh. Who, notwithstanding their powerful armies and prowess and skill in war, yet are conquered and destroyed and laid in graves in like manner as all others slain by the sword of the enemy. Though they themselves were circumcised, being descendants of Esau, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, on whose seed circumcision was enjoined, yet this did not secure them from a violent death or an ignominious burial. They being uncircumcised in heart, wicked and unrighteous men, and so should be joined to their death, in their death and burial with such. In other words, they were set down to put in a pit, just like everybody else. Verse 30, there will be princes of the north, the kings of Babylon, according to one writer, which lay north of Judea, or the princes of Syria, Damascus, and Tyre, especially the latter, which commonly goes along with Zidon, being near it as it follows. And all the Zidonians, the Vulgate Latin version renders it, and all the hunters, but wrongly, as also the Septuagint and Arabic versions, which read the princes or soldiers of Assyria. The Zidonians, or inhabitants of Zidon, are meant as the Targum, a famous maritime system, as Tyre also was in Phoenicia, which are gone down with slain into the grave, being conquered and destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. That's found in Ezekiel 28:21. Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 21, Son of man, set your face towards Sidon, and prophesy against it, and say, thus says Adonai Yahweh, behold, I am against you, Sidon, I will be glorified among you. Then they will know that I am Yahweh, when I have executed judgments in her and am sanctified in her. For I will send pestilence into her, and blood into her streets, and the wounded will fall with her, with the sword on her every side. Then they will know that I am Yahweh. There will be no more a pricking briar to the house of Israel, nor a hurting thorn of any that are around them that scorn them. Then will they know that I am Adonai Yahweh. Verse 31, Pharaoh shall see them and shall be comforted over his multitude. That is, when Pharaoh is brought to the grave and into the state of the dead, he shall look about him and see who lie with him. And he shall behold the above-mentioned kings of Assyria, Persia, Idumea, and the princes of Tyre and Sidon, and all their mighty armies, generals and soldiers, in the same condition with himself. This shall be some solace to him in his own death. And at the loss of so great a kingdom, such numerous subjects, and a vast army, that others as rich, as powerful as himself, lie in the same low and esteemed condition, though such comfort as this must be poor comfort indeed. And yet this is all the comfort wicked men have in Hades, in the grave, that they have company with them, with others that are there like in their condition. Even Pharaoh and all his army is slain by the sword. Pharaoh Hophra and his numerous army is slain by the sword by the king of Babylon. This explains who is meant by Pharaoh and his multitude, and this would certainly be his case is added. It says Adonai Yahweh, he has spoken it, and it shall be done, whose words are continued in the next verse. Verse 32, for I have caused my terror in the land of the living, or his terror, he's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. There is a double reading. The Kiri, or the marginal reading, which we follow, has it, my terror, but the Sitib, or writing, is his terror. And in other words, be possessive of this Hebrew word, whether it's my terror or his terror, is what's meant by this. And so read the Septuagint, Syriac, and Arabic versions. Both may be taken, and the sense be, I have caused or suffered him, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to be a terror to the nations about him, particularly to the land of Israel, which the Targum expressly mentions as the land of the living. And now I will terrify him who has terrified others. And he shall be laid in the midst of the uncircumcised with those that are slain with the sword. Shall have a common burial with other heathen nations, even with such who, in the way of judgment, have perished by the sword of their victorious enemies, as he will. Even Pharaoh and all of his multitude, says Adonai Yahweh, the king of Egypt, his subjects and his soldiers, as numerous as they are, and thus ends his doleful ditty, this doleful ditty and funeral dirge or lamentation, composed, taken up, and sung for Pharaoh as ordered, thereby to assure him of his certain destruction. In other words, he heard his death dirge before he died. Chapter 33, let's see. Yes, Curtis?
Actually, a lot of what we read here, there was a past fulfillment in the time of Ezekiel, but there still seems to be somewhat of a futuristic.
Very possible.
Thing well, I mean that we have an agreement here with Daniel 11.
Daniel chapter 11. Go ahead and read it.
Let's see. I'm not going to read all of it, but it talks about warring kings in the north and the south, and I'm going to pick it up verse 40 because at the end of I'll pick it up verse 40. It's getting to the heart of the matter.
Daniel 11, verse 40.
Because here's what's getting about other nations being drawn in, and other nations being drawn in. At the end of the time, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north will come against him, and like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, and many ships. And he shall enter many countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. And he shall enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape from his hand: Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Adam, or of Ammon. What happened to these people even though they escaped his hand? They fall into the hands of Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
Who is quite, as we've already read, he's very angry with those people. And he shall stretch his hand out against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape.
Yep.
Shall have power of all the treasures of gold, silver, and all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and Ethiopians will also follow at his heels. But news from the east and the north will also trouble him, and therefore he will go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate me. So this is going to build up. This what looks like a Middle Eastern war and a conflict is going to build up and stretch out to a pretty good regional battle.
Well, see, this is also Daniel.
And it's going to draw other nations in.
This is also Daniel. He's in captivity, same as Ezekiel is.
And then with Daniel in captivity, well, all this stuff, the stuff that was immediately referenced to Ezekiel has already taken place.
Yeah.
So this leaves a futurist that we're in for.
Leaves that possibility, yes.
Well, I mean, it looks like we're in for a repeat here, round 2.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm reading this correctly. Because remember, by the time of Daniel, all this other stuff that we read about in Ezekiel, the immediate time fulfillment had already come and gone.
Well, what we're coming down to now is, like in chapter 33 of Ezekiel, beginning in verse 1, says, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, speak to the children of your people, and say unto them, when I bring the sword upon a land, if the people of the land take a man of their coast and set him up for their watchman, put somebody out there to watch for what's going on. If when he sees the sword come upon the land, he blows the trumpet and warns the people, which is what Daniel and them did. This is what Ezekiel has done here. He's warned, because his warning hadn't taken place yet. He warned Pharaoh what was going to happen. He warned the others of what was going to happen. He said, verse 3, if when he sees the sword come upon the land and blows the trumpet and warns the people, then whosoever hears the sound of the trumpet and takes not warning, if the sword come and take him away, his blood shall be upon his own head. And we got to think about this. This also applies to now. Means that, because Yeshua said, watch for what's coming. Be aware of it. He gives you the outline of the events and how and the time frame that they're going to occur in Matthew 24. And the thing about it is, I'm hearing more and more religious people talking about Matthew 24. And even some secular people that are talking about Matthew 24 because of what it says in there. And it's like here, it says, you're to watch. If you have someone in a city, you would put somebody on the ramparts to keep an eye out for any invading armies, or you would have people that would be out at the border of the country to watch out for the fact that there's an invading army coming in, so that you don't have them suddenly show up over the horizon when you wake up that morning. It says, but if the watchman sees the sword come, and there are a lot of people right now that they don't want to see the sword come, and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. See, nobody warned those on the kibbutzes of what was coming. They had no warning at all. I mean, it was on them. And what really was interesting, they had the most sophisticated border fence that was ever erected in the world. It had more sensors, more people supposed to be watching, except now it turns out that they weren't. That they were actually undermanned and were not paying attention to what was going on. And by the time they did, because basically the army did not arrive in the kibbutzes for 6 hours. One kibbutz didn't make it there until nearly 20 hours, and it had one of the higher death tolls because they were running rampant in the town. And the people were, last month, just prior to this, the government had come in and seized all of the personal weapons. So there were no personal weapons other than those that were handled by the individual security at the kibbutz. Well, most of them were at the rave concert. I found that one interesting too. That was happening on the Sabbath.
That's right.
It was a big concert, rave concert. They were doing a little bit of drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever. Why? They were almost acting like the ones where we go back to the ones with the idols at the foot of the mountain when Moses didn't come down right away. We got to have this big party, but more than anything, it was on the Sabbath. So they really expected Yahweh to protect them. Literally, you're throwing it up in his face by violating his Sabbath, and yet you expect him to provide you with protection. And a lot of the guys that were supposed to be watching along here were on leave. So all of this went on. And it's like what he talks about here. If you don't have that watchman, And technically, these watchmen failed to do their job. It says, verse 7, O you, son of man, I have set you a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, you shall hear the word at my mouth and warn them from me. The warning is in Matthew 24. If you don't pay attention to that warning, you will not pay attention to any other warning. He lays it out in Matthew 24. When I say unto the wicked, O wicked man, you shall surely die, if you do not speak to warn the wicked from his way. Now we're talking about more than a warning of an invading army. We're talking about warning a wicked man of his sins. If you do not speak to warn the wicked from his way, that wicked man shall die in his iniquity, in his sins. That's what the word means. But his blood will be required of your hand. Nevertheless, if you warn the wicked of his way to turn him from it, if he do not turn from his way, he shall die in his sins. But you have delivered your soul. Yes, Robert.
Yes, that's the sword that's coming. Remember, Yahshua the Messiah will come with the sword of the word of Almighty Yahweh, and so that's the role that we have is as lights in a dark world to warn those of the coming kingdom of Yahweh, to warn them of the judgment to come, and so that's the sword that people should fear.
Yeah.
Is the sword of Yahweh's word. It comes for that Yahshua bears, the tongue of his mouth is the sword that divides between the bone and marrow and so on.
And verse 10 says, Therefore, O you son of man, speak unto the house of Israel. Notice who he says, speak to the house of Israel. Thus you speak, saying, If our transgressions and our sins be upon us, and we pine away in them, how should we then live? Say it to them. Notice how he says it. Say unto them, As I live, saith Adonai Yahweh, I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but that the wicked turn away from his way and live. Turn you from your evil ways, for why will you die, O house of Israel? It's pointed. One of the reasons for this talks about the house of Israel is the fact they're the ones that Yahweh gave this Torah to and laid out what they needed to do in their life. It says here, Therefore, you son of man, because they've already received the warning, say unto the children of your people, the righteousness of the righteous shall not deliver him in the day of his transgression. As for the wickedness of the wicked, he shall not fall thereby in the day that he turns from his wickedness, neither shall the righteous be able to live for his righteousness in the day that he sins. When I shall say to the righteous that they shall surely live, if he trusts to his own righteousness and commits iniquity, all his righteousness shall not be remembered. You can do a lifetime of righteousness in one sin, and it will not remember. Go ahead, Curtis.
Yes, but we have to remember here, when we're reading this portion of Ezekiel, it says, who's the warning going out to in search of? It's to the house of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't say to the Jews, it says to the house of Israel.
Right.
But the house of Israel had been in captivity, had been dispersed already for 150 years.
Uh-huh.
But we got to remember, what time period are we in here? We're in the 5th. If you go back, read the opening comments of Ezekiel 1, please. Keep your place here. I'll go ahead and start since I'm already there. Now it came to pass in the 30th year of the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, that I was amongst the captives by the river Kabar, and that the heavens were opened to me, and I saw visions of Yahweh. And on the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiachin's captivity, so even the last king of Israel had already been in captivity. They were being ruled by a governor at this time.
Right, Gedaliah.
That's right, by Gedaliah the governor at this time. When he saw all this.
This is Going on in verse 11.
And this is already in the land. So I mean, they were on the verge of the final. They were on the eve of the final round of captivity, round of captives. At this point,
It's going back over with verse 11 of chapter 33 of Ezekiel. Saying to them, as I live, says Adonai Yahweh, I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but that the wicked turn away his way and live. Turn you from your evil ways, for why will you die, O house of Israel? Therefore, you son of man, say unto the children of your people, the righteousness of the righteous shall not deliver him in the day of his transgression. As for the wickedness of the wicked, he shall not fall thereby in the day that he turns from his wickedness. In other words, you turn away from it, you survive. Neither shall the righteous be able to live for his righteousness in the day that he sins. When I shall say to the righteous that he shall surely live, if he trusts his own righteousness and commits iniquity, all his righteousness shall not be remembered. But for his iniquity that he hath committed, he shall die for it. Again, when I say unto the wicked, you shall surely die, if he turns from his sin and do that which is lawful and right, if the wicked restores the pledge, give again that he hath robbed, walk in the statutes of life, without committing iniquity, he shall surely live, he shall not die. None of his sins that he has committed shall be mentioned unto him. He hath done that which is lawful and right, he shall surely live. Yes. Still got 5. Okay. Verse 17. Yet the children of your people say, the way of Yahweh is not equal, but as for them, their way is not equal. What their idea of equal is not Yahweh's idea of equal. When the righteous turns from his righteousness and commits iniquity, he shall even die thereby. But if the wicked turn from his wickedness and do that which is lawful and right, he shall live thereby. Yet you say, the way of Yahweh is not equal. O you house of Israel, I will judge you every one after his ways. Not our ways, not my ways, not your ways. It's Yahweh's ways. In verse 21, and it came to pass in the 12th year of our captivity, in the 10th month, in the 5th day of the month, that one that had escaped out of Jerusalem came unto me, saying, the city is smitten. They're in captivity. There is a person that survived the fall of Jerusalem who escaped it. He has now reached Ezekiel in Babylon. It says, now the hand of Yahweh was upon me in the evening before he that escaped came and opened my mouth, until he came to me in the morning, and my mouth was open, and I was no more dumb. Then the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, they that inhabit those wastes of the land of Israel speak, saying, Abraham was one, and he inherited the land. But we are many, the land is given us for inheritance. Wherefore say unto them, thus says Adonai Yahweh, you eat with the blood. Is that according to the law? No. And lift up your eyes toward your idols. Is that according to the law? No. And shed blood, and you possess the land. You stand upon your sword. You work abomination, and you defile everyone his neighbor's wife. And shall you possess the land? Well, what goes on today? All of this goes on. You realize that Israel is one of the major nations of white slavery, as they call it. In other words, sexual slavery in the world. I mean, the newspapers, it gets so bad, even the newspapers run these articles about the rabbis going down to Tel Aviv on Friday evening to see the prostitutes. Okay? So, they don't have a problem with it. In verse 27, say you thus unto them, thus saith Adonai Yahweh, as I live, surely they that are in the waste shall fall by the sword, and him that is in the open field will I give to the beast to be devoured. And they that be in the forts and in the caves shall die of the pestilence. For I will lay the land most desolate, and the pomp of her strength shall cease. And the mountains of Israel shall be desolate, that none shall pass through. Then shall they know that I am Yahweh, when I have laid the land most desolate because of all their abominations which they have committed. One of the things that history showed was that when Israel went into captivity, and while they were there for 70 years, while Nebuchadnezzar brought in people from other lands into certain parts of Israel, majority of Israel was desolate. What I mean by desolate, it was overgrown, wild beasts. People actually, before when they would travel through Israel, going from, say, from Lebanon down to Egypt. Now they're having to go over into Jordan to bypass because of all the wild beasts that are loose in the land. It has become a wilderness, a real wilderness, where it's really dangerous to go through it. And that's what he's telling them. You know, I'm fixing to make this, you didn't want to listen to me? I'm going to make this where nobody can live here. Yes, we're going to have to finish.
He went out to the world that William Clemens, Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain as he was also known. He said that the prophecy couldn't possibly be true, that it would be the promised land because it was just utterly desolate. Well, you just got through reading this account, that's what would happen, and he verified it, went around the world. He was a very famous author, and said, well, there's no way this could be the promised land. It's just all a desolation. Nobody's there.
Yeah.
Came to pass.
So with that, hallelujah, praise Yahweh. Hallelujah, praise Yeshua, Yah's salvation.